topic, but we're going to get a great intro to it this morning. So most people know me for my medical intuition, and people ask, how is it that I'm able to get so much detail and clarity and accurate information in my medical intuitive readings? It's because of the process of discernment. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Some of them are fun, some of them are examples where people didn't use it. A number of years ago, at the end of a talk at a national convention, a woman waited in line to ask me some questions, and she said, I'd like to know, do you and your husband still have sex? And I said, that's an interesting question. Why do you ask? And she said, because as you were talking, I definitely got the sense that you're an 18th level initiate, and so am I. And I'm smiling and listening, and I said, and tell me a little bit about that. Well, an 18th level initiate and upward is not allowed to have sex. I said, exactly where did you learn this? And she said, in my manual from a teacher. I said, okay. I said, first, when we talk about levels, I'm not really into levels. Who cares what level anything is? We just all strive to get better and better at what we do. And so I said, if you need to look in a book to be told about whether you're going to have sex or not, then you ain't an 18th level nothing. And she said, so are you telling me that I really ought to have sex with my husband? And I said, how long has this been going on, this abstinence? She said, about 3 years. I said, I think that you really need to go within yourself and find out how satisfied are you or him. And she looked for a minute. I said, so it's not about me giving you permission, it's about you using discernment and determining for yourself. She said, I think I'm leaving the conference early. And I said, you go, girl. So that's where discernment for her would have really come in handy. Would have saved 3 years of unfun times at home. Another one happened when my mother got skin cancer. And as an intuitive, a medical intuitive, and a healer, you can imagine when a diagnosis like that comes through, you could get in your own way. But I knew that whatever needed to be done correctly, and that I needed to step out of any of my attachments, that this was my mother I was talking about and tuning into, and release any of my concerns for that. So I literally tuned into what needed to be done. They drove up from Florida, and they planned on staying for 48 hours and then driving back to Florida. So the first phone call after the doctor was to us and driving up. They now live with us, so it's a much shorter commute. And so I tuned into what needed to be done in an energetic sense. And I involved my dad in the process too, because he's a closet healer. So my husband, Aaron Singleton, and myself and my father worked on my mother. And it took about an hour, and I saw everything shift. They drove back to Florida, and they could no longer find the melanoma. So if I hadn't been able to be in a state of discernment, perhaps my fears of losing my mother or getting into the medical model, look at it, I could have had a whole different outcome. Another one that was a really great example, at the end of one of my medical intuitive readings, a woman showed me a picture of an angel with its wings wrapped around a young child. And I just looked at that and I got kind of teary-eyed. It was so beautiful. And I saw this incredible heart connection between this woman and the painting. I said, what a beautiful painting you have. Where do you have it hanging? And she said, it's not my painting. I said, oh yes it is. So she told me that she had gone on a business trip, and in a gallery she had found this gorgeous painting, fell in love with it, but didn't have the courage to decide to go ahead and make the decision. She'd been saving her money. The painting was an original oil painting, and it was about $14,000. So it was something she had as an intended purpose, but because it was still a sizable amount of money, she just didn't trust herself enough. So apparently she'd gone to another intuitive and asked, and the other intuitive said, stay away from that painting. They were totally the opposite answer that I gave when I tuned in. And she said, that's really strange. I don't understand. So she just asked me, could you give me a sense of why what you just said is totally the opposite of what this other person told me? And I said, well, just give me the name and I'll tune in based on the name and see if I can get an answer for you. So the answer that I got was the healer had a scarcity issue. She would never in a million years ever consider spending $14,000 on a painting. And because of her focus on scarcity, she actually gave incorrect advice to this other person. And so she ended up going on another business trip back to the gallery. At this point, I would say 3 to 6 months easily had passed. She went into the gallery. It was still hanging on the wall. And she said, I'll take it. And this was a while ago. She didn't have a cell phone, so she needed to go find a payphone. And she said, I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go call my bank. I need the wiring instructions for here. In the few minutes that she was gone, someone else came in and tried to buy the painting. And so when she came back, the gallery owner said, this painting really must have been yours, because literally you almost lost it. Thank God you got here when you did. And you said, but you did, because someone else was ready. So if she'd been empowered to use discernment for herself, she would have bought it the first trip, would have already been hanging on her wall. So she did get it, and it's beautifully hanging on the stair landing between her first and second floor. And another one was a client that was very unhappy in her job, and she had her resume out there, and she actually found her dream job. She was very, very excited about it. And she said what they told her, however, she couldn't start the job for, I believe at this point it was 3 months hence, because they needed to put her into the next budget year. So that budget year needed to end, and the next one, that's where they had that job created just for her. So she so despised the job she was in, she was all ready to quit and just kind of limp by for the next couple months. And I said, well, hold on a second. Congratulations, that's fantastic. Just hold on a second. And I tuned in and I go, no, don't quit the job. Wait. Just wait. It's very important that you wait for at least 3 weeks, if not 4, before you give your notice. Well, 3 weeks later, she came in for another appointment and she said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, well, try me. She said, they let me go, and they gave me a 3 to 4 month severance package. So she now had all this time off with pay and finished working on her stuff.